I had asked the group what felt most confusing when starting a nonprofit, and you all answered pretty loud and clear. So, we're going to dive into the four main areas that consistently trip people up, even for people who've worked in nonprofits before. My name is Dr. Lauren Lawson. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in California and Pennsylvania. I'm a nonprofit founder. I've been running my nonprofit group practice for the last 13 years, and I'm a coach helping therapists build sustainable nonprofit group practices. So today's training is all about clarity. I had asked the group what felt most confusing when starting a nonprofit, and you all answered pretty loud and clear. So we're going to dive into the four main areas that consistently trip people up, even for people who've worked in nonprofits before. So here's what we're going to talk about: getting 501c3 status. What does that mean? Building your board, legal structure and bylaws, and then finding initial funding. So, with that said, let's dive in with step one, which is getting your 501c3 status. This is your federal tax exemption status from the IRS. It allows you to accept tax deductible no donations, apply for grants, and then gain the public's trust. So, the steps to get there are to incorporate in your state. That is the very first step that you have to do when setting up a nonprofit. You're going to apply to get your EIN. You can do this directly from the IRS website. Do not pay someone else to do this. It is totally free through the IRS. And then once you're incorporated with the state, you're going to file your 1023 application. This is the application on the IRS website to get that designation as a 501c3. And there's either the full 1023 that you can do or the 1023 easy. So a common confusion point is knowing the difference between those two forms. So I'm going to go in and tell you what the difference is so you can decide which one makes the most sense for you. The 1023 EZ is for smaller organizations, and by smaller I mean their projected revenue is 50,000 annual revenue or less than 250K in assets. It's cheaper and it's faster and it's online. You still need to write a brief description of your charitable purpose, so be clear and use IRS style language. Yeah, if you plan to make more than 50K in the next 3 years, then you don't want to use the EZ, because if you use the EZ just to use the easier system, then you're actually going to put your status at risk. So you don't want to do that. Don't apply without a well-defined mission. You still need that. You need to clarify your activities and services that you'll be providing, and you need to have your bylaws and board members in place. So one tip is, though, you can start operating while your application is still pending with the IRS. You'll just need to disclose that your status is pending. So that will be something that you need to do up front. You're going to want to use the full 1023 application if you plan to make 50,000 or more in total revenue over the next 3 years. So that's most likely going to happen in nonprofit group practices, especially if you start seeing clients right away. You're going to hit that 50K mark pretty soon. All right, so the second step is building your board. A lot of us hear the term board and kind of panic, but think of it as like your mission aligned advisory team with legal authority. I know that still sounds kind of scary. So, what does a board do? They oversee the financials, the strategy, and the compliance, not the day to day financials, the overall budget, the annual budget, the projections for financial year, not like the day to day budgeting, not the new program budgeting, but the big picture of budgeting and financials. They approve the budget and they supervise leadership, and that's you. So, yes, the board does technically supervise you. They also help fundraise and they expand your network. So the board does play an important role in supporting you. What to avoid when you're building your board: you don't want to just use your best friends who say yes to everything. You want people who actually care about the mission, not just the title of being on the board. And then you don't want it to be all therapists. So you want diversity in skill. So, what to look for is people who believe in your mission, basic understanding of nonprofits, and skills like legal, finance, HR, community organizing. They don't have to be experts in this, but it is really helpful to have other people who work in other fields other than mental health. So let's talk about board roles. Typically, there are three that are required. That's the chair slash president. This is the person that leads the meetings. This is the person that keeps the board on track. Then there's the secretary. They handle minutes of the meetings, the records and compliance. and then, of course, the treasurer who manages and reviews the financial reports. You can serve as one of these, but you can't serve as all three. And you can be the executive director and be on the board. So a lot of founders end up doing that. So you want to start with a small board, so 3 to 5 strong, reliable members, and then keep meetings focused on mission centered topics. All right, step 3 is actually the legal structure and bylaws. So, your legal structure is the foundation to your nonprofit. Without it, the IRS won't approve your tax exemption and you'll be exposed legally. So, we don't want that to happen. So, the most common structure is a public benefit nonprofit corporation. This is required in many states when you apply for the 501c3. So, when you go to incorporate with the state, you're going to incorporate as a C corporation. Your bylaws are the board's operating policies and procedures. They include board composition and term limits, they include voting procedures, they include officer roles and responsibilities. It includes quorum, so the minimum number of board members to vote and basically hold a vote legally on the board. A lot of times you can add in a founder's clause to the bylaws. So basically, if you don't include this, then the founder doesn't have any protection. So you might want to consider adding into your bylaws a clause that allows the founder to serve indefinitely or as a tiebreaker. Language that requires supermajority to remove the founder and a role on the board. And yes, you can be on the board, like I said. So if you're nervous about the board taking over, then you can have founder protections in your bylaws. Some things to fix in your bylaws now, if you already have them, is if you have any vague voting rules, if you have no limits on board terms and no mention of founder's role, you can always go back and edit your bylaws and then have your board approve them. So, one tip is your bylaws don't need to be fancy, but they do need to work and you do need to know what your bylaws say. All right, step 4 is finding initial funding. So, let me bust a myth right now. Grants are not your starting point. Don't go after grants right away. It's not going to work. You're going to waste your time. So, grants come after you already built a proven system and after you've already built a proven model. So, instead, where you probably want to begin is setting up a fee for service model just like any other practice. Then you'll want to expand in creating local partnerships and maybe sponsorships. Then you'll use family and friends to create like a donor circle. And then from there, you might expand into mini grants, local grants, before going to big foundational or government grants. So don't start with grants. You want to build the foundation of your nonprofit first. That is absolutely essential. Some things to do to start setting you up for success when you're trying to fundraise, get people to donate, is you want to write your founder story and share it publicly. But to get ready to start fundraising, you'll want to write your founder story. So this is your hero's journey and share it publicly. So people are tied to a mission that tells a story. So you want to get really good with your storytelling. You could launch a founding donor drive. So ask 10 people to give $100, right? Like $100 is so doable for 10 people. And right there, then and there you go. You have your first mini fundraising that you did. You could host a small event or webinar and collect donations through those. You could start one program and then gather client testimonials, right? So just starting a cash pay, sliding scale, fee for service program is all you need to get off the ground. And then, so what you'll do is you'll use that traction to start building your foundation, to proving your outcomes, to proving that what you're building is working, and that will set you up to be able to apply to grants. So the key here with nonprofits is that sustainability comes with mixing revenue. You don't just want one revenue stream, which is why this model is different than the traditional private practice. Traditional private practice is one revenue stream. It's the fee for service model, cash pay, commercial insurance type of model. That's just considered one revenue stream. Whereas in nonprofit, you have the ability to expand into multiple revenue streams. So that's your fee for service, that's your local partnerships, that is local grants, that's fundraising. There's lots of different revenue streams that you can have to fund your nonprofit. And that's what keeps you sustainable. So you're not reliant on one income, one revenue. To clarify your next steps and not make it confusing, the first thing you're going to do is file with your state to get incorporated. Then you're going to complete your 501c3 application with the IRS. You're going to build your board that believes in your mission. And then you're going to create strong bylaws because your bylaws run your board and you need that for the 501c3 application. And then you're going to launch a small, scalable practice with fee for service funding as the base foundation for initial funding, and then expand from there to get donations, to get small grants, to get partnerships before even thinking about larger grants. We don't want you to waste your time with any of that. So that's why I say do this model first.